Hello everyone, back tuning into today's second video. We're doing the verification for the summer 2018 forecast for today's second video. So at the end of May, we issued the GasNobies.com summer 2018 forecast. And we said that we wait and see how the season progresses. Whenever we issue the long-range forecast at GasNobies, we never change them. We just put them out there and then we wait and see how they perform through the season. And then we, at the end of the season, we go back and have a look and see how we did. So we released the GasNobies.com summer forecast at the end of May. We said at the beginning of September we'd go back and have a look. And that's what we're going to do for today's second video update. And that will close the door firmly shut on the summer of 2018. Now, we know it's been a very, very hot summer indeed, especially the first and middle part of the summer. June and July came out incredibly hot months and also very, very dry as well. August was a little bit more changeable, and so that aspect of the summer forecast I think went okay. We did predict that we would have we actually said the hottest and driest weather would be in June, compared to average, and then we would deteriorate by August. So that side of things went reasonably well. But other than that, I'm not all that pleased with the summer forecast. But I'll show you the anomaly maps first of all from the UK Met. So this is how summer 2018 looks in terms of its temperature anomaly set against 61 to 990. All of the data in at the UK Met Office now, of course. And so set against 61 to 1990, the old cold temperature average that encompasses a cold decade of the 1960s, which had really cold winters and also mainly cool and miserable summers as well in the 1960s. So encompassing that decade, we come out with a very, very hot summer anomaly indeed. Much of England and Wales come out over 2 degrees above average in terms of the temperature anomaly set against 61 to 990. Even in Scotland, even to the far north of Scotland, we're talking about an anomaly of 1.5 to 2 degrees above average. So certainly set against 61 to 990, very, very hot summer indeed. It was also a very hot summer set against 81 to 2010. The anomaly isn't quite as dramatically hot for most of us, but even so, we're still talking about kind of 1.5 to 2 degrees above average widely across England and Wales. Not quite as intense an anomaly for Scotland and Northern Ireland, but over a degree, up to 1.5 degrees above average, with 1 or 2 specific areas through central Scotland in particular going over 1.5 degrees above average. So whichever temperature anomaly we take, obviously we have had an incredibly warm, hot summer indeed. Now, if we just break that down month by month, and let's go back to 61 to 990 and have a look at June's temperature anomaly. So we see that June did come out as a very warm month indeed, particularly so, interestingly, in the west, a little bit less so for the east. I suppose that depicts the fact that we had a lot of easterly winds during June. And so eastern areas were that little bit cooler compared to the west. And we see it again with the 81 to 2010 temperature anomaly. But a very, very warm, hot start to the summer. And then this is what I think really did the summer forecast in. It's July. We see that July was a very, very hot month indeed. One of the hottest months, hottest Julys on record, set against 61 to 1990. We see that many central parts of England and Wales are up to 3.5 degrees or more above average. I think that they've actually had to increase the temperature scale here for this month. So kind of like off the scale heat across England and Wales during July, and a very warm to hot month across Scotland and Northern Ireland as well. Then if we compare that to 81 to 2010, again, the heat really is down across England and Wales. It's not as dramatically hot with that anomaly further north and west, but even so, it is a very warm month indeed. And then finally, just show you what happened in August. And then August did have this cool down. So set against 61 to 1990. Nowhere near as dramatically hot then. The highest temperature anomalies to average in August are over in the east. I mean, kind of like 1.5 degrees above average. So still pretty warm, but nothing like as dramatically hot as June and particularly July. And if we compare it to 81 to 2010, actually many western parts of the country come out around average during August and only a little bit above average set against 81 to 2010 across central and eastern parts of the country. So obviously a cool down did take place during the summer, during the latter stages of the summer, I should say. That's quite evident that we got to August and things did cool down. The heat kind of peaked in the north and west in the final days of July, and then we had one last burst of heat across the south of the country during the first week of August, but then that really was it, and things did get a lot cooler then as we went through into the second week of August. Rainfall-wise, this is how the summer comes out. Not only was it a hot summer, it was also a dry summer, so this is the rainfall anomaly set against 61 to 1990. We see specific area through central England coming out exceptionally dry, really from Lincolnshire down through the Midlands into central southern England, coming out with precipitation anomalies of around 30 to 50% of average. Around the edge of that, so much of Wales, southwest England, also interesting into the far southeast of England, there it wasn't quite as dry, was drier than average, but in August, I think particularly for parts of Wales, southwest England, did turn a little bit more unsettled. Eastern and northeastern Scotland come out with a very dry summer, but southwest Scotland and some parts of Northern Ireland, interestingly, are much closer to average, which perhaps is a little bit controversial with people in Northern Ireland, because of course they're one of the few areas in this country that did actually have to put up with a hosepipe ban this summer, but it turns out they were actually one of the wetter places this summer. So questions perhaps for the Northern Ireland water authorities to answer there. If you have a look at the 81 to 2010 average, and again we see a very similar scene. Southwest Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland closer to average, very dry for North and Northeast Scotland, and much of England and Wales coming out dry as well, particularly through the central sway from Yorkshire, Lincolnshire down through the Midlands into central southern England once again. Just having a look at month by month, so we can see that in June it was extraordinarily dry across much of England and Wales, and particularly the Midlands and the south, with many places having barely any measurable rainfall whatsoever from beginning to end during June. It was an extraordinarily dry month, as well as being very warm and hot. Southwest Scotland and down to the borders of northern England, there the precipitation was a little bit higher, coming out average to slightly above average. That's primarily, I would have thought, down to specific thunderstorms. July's precipitation looks like that. So still a very dry month for many of us, but not as dramatically dry as we had in June. Some places again, though, parts of the East Midlands, parts of the Midlands up to the Welsh borders, we're coming out very dry in some areas at around 33 or less of percent of average. Further north, it's a little bit closer to average. And again, I assume this is a lot to do with hit and miss thunderstorms. We do see a lot of regional variation in there. So parts of East Anglia, the far east of East Anglia, exceptionally dry around that east coast, but a little way inland in towards perhaps places like Norwich, and we do see that there was more precipitation around there. So again, hit and miss thunderstorms creating quite a bit of regional variation in July. Overall, though, it was a dry month. And then this is how August looks. Nowhere near as dry. There was a specific zone from Lincolnshire down towards the North Midlands and North Wales that did come out still quite dry, and also northern eastern Scotland came out quite dry during August, but for the rest of us, precipitation was close to average. The north of northern England comes out a little bit wetter than average in a few places. Also, interestingly and surprisingly, East Anglia, the south of East Anglia, southeast England, comes out a little bit wetter than average during August. So again, quite a bit of regional variation. But obviously we do see here but we had a very hot and dry June and July, and then it became more unsettled and cooler during August. So that side of the forecast went okay, but otherwise it was a much hotter and a much drier summer than we anticipated. This is quite an interesting chart. It doesn't really have anything to do with the summer forecast, but it does show you the regional variation in terms of those areas that have had their hottest summers. So this dark red area that we see here across Swales and much of southern southeast England, that's 2018. That's where new temperature records have been set for the summer of 2018. Those areas have had their hottest summer on record. This pink area, that's 2006, so parts of the South and Southwest Midlands, also a lot of Northern England, particularly Northeast England, still holds on to 2006 as their hottest summer. The darker blue area out here in the west, most of that area still has 1995 as their hottest summer on record. So 1995 was very hot in the west. It's a very easterly summer, so eastern parts of the country not quite as hot. Central Scotland holds on to 1983, the red colour there. So Central Scotland 1983, still the hottest summer on record. This brown beige area, that's 1976. So parts of the south coast keep 1976 as their hottest summer. And just going to show you how these regions vary in these different summers. We have, would you believe, got 1947 still there as the hottest summer on record for parts of East Anglia. So that's very interesting. The orange-yellow coloured areas, there's not much of that. Let's get rid of all of this. The orangey-yellow area, such as we see there around the borders of Scotland, possibly there in eastern Scotland, that's 1933. So there are still some specific areas in this country whose hottest summer summer temperature record was set in 1933. And despite all of the hot summers that we've had over the decades, especially 1976, but also 1995 and now 2018. Yes, 1933 still holds on in those areas. And we're going further back than that to the south of Wales and southwestern parts of England. Those areas, would you believe, still have their all-time summer temperature records set in 1911, over a century ago. So they are very limited, very specific areas. But for a few limited specific areas, one or two places still hold on to their hottest summers on record from like a century or kind of like 80 years ago or something like that. So quite extraordinary. But you see that many parts of central and eastern England have set new temperature records for this summer. So obviously it has been a very, very hot summer, to say the least. And we didn't pick that out in the Gasworthy summer forecast. In fact, I think I said I thought it was unlikely that we would have a classic summer. So I don't think we can say that the Gasworthy.com summer 2018 forecast has been accurate. From the analogues perspective as well, they didn't perform terribly well either. These were the analogues we was working with. Essentially, we did think we'd have that dry June with a lot of high pressure, but for the summer overall, we had kind of like an anti-cyclonic signal, both with our top 5 and with our top 3 summers. We did have quite a cyclonic, I should say, signal. So we thought, although we would start off fairly dry in June, there will be more unsettled weather. This is actually how the reanalysis looks in terms of the 500 millibar height anomaly for the summer of 2018. Obviously, it's very, very anti-cyclonic summer indeed, despite the deterioration that occurred in August. Overall, we have this huge ridge that it just covered much of the northern hemisphere, really. It extended from Northern America through the Atlantic, through the UK to Europe. It actually backed up into Russia as well, which kept the low pressure and the polar vortex all penned in up there around Greenland and Iceland. They had a very cool summer, unsettled summer around Greenland and Iceland. But through the mid-latitudes, we have this huge ridge that covered kind of like hundreds and thousands of miles of area. As I say, we did pick out the dry June, so that was our signal for June's 500 millibar high anomaly. We correctly got the anticyclonic signal. So we started off okay with the summer forecast, whether it was the top 5 or the top 3. And we did get the deterioration, but our deterioration was much more dramatic. By August, we thought we would be properly into unsettled conditions with our top 5 and top 3, and obviously it wasn't as unsettled as that, although we did get the deterioration that occurred late summer. Right, so I don't think we can put this down as a success against this summer forecast. I think I have to say it was a failure. It was a miss rather than a hit, and the reasons for that, I think summer forecasting is very challenging anyway, because what we do with the summer forecast is we carry through a lot of the drivers that we look at for winter. So winter forecasting, perhaps surprisingly, winter forecasting is a lot easier than summer forecasting because you have a lot of drivers to go. You have things like the QBO, quasi-biennial oscillation. You have things like ENSO to go at as well for the winter. Various things that drive the weather, that teleconnect to the weather patterns, are important in the winter, but these drivers become much less influential through the summer. So summer forecasting is very challenging, and then we come out with a very extreme pattern. Anyway, I've always said that we can, with these long-range forecasts, we can get the broad trends correct. We can pick up on the broad trends often, which is either it's going to be warmer or a cool season in winter, a mild or a cold season. We can get broad trend in terms of precipitation right, perhaps. Will it be warm? Will it be dry? Or will it be wet? But when you get very extreme seasons, I don't think really that you can, from a long-range forecast perspective, I don't think you can really pick up on those extreme seasons because they are, by their very nature, one-offs. They don't occur very often, and they're very random when they show up. Now, we did predict it would be a warmer than average summer, so we got the broad trend correct. We say it would likely be a very warm summer, perhaps, although we stopped short of forecasting a hot summer, which is what we came out with. So the broad trend maybe wasn't too bad. The dry start and the hot start, and then the cooler and more unsettled end, again, maybe not too bad. So I think what probably would say is that although the broad trends maybe came out correct, overall it was a much more extreme season than we anticipated. We thought rainfall would come out close to average with quite a lot of thunderstorms. Actually, we came out very substantially drier than average. We thought temperatures would be warmer than average, yes, but nowhere near as hot as they turned out to be. So it's up to you to decide what you think really about the GasWeatherViz Summer 2018 podcast. Maybe I'm being a bit hard on myself with this one. The broad trends possibly were along the right lines, but it turned out to be much more extreme than anticipated. As I just said, it is probable that for very extreme seasons, because they're one-offs, they're very random and they occur very randomly, they don't happen very often at all. It's possible that it's just impossible to forecast for these very extreme seasons. But we keep endeavouring to improve, and that's it. So that closes the door on the summer 2018 forecast. I think it's always best for forecasters to go back and look at their forecast, look at their work, see how it came out, see how it performed, see if it went wrong. If it did go wrong, to kind of admit that it went wrong and try and explain the reasons why. So it's very important that you verify your forecasts after you put them out there. A lot of forecasters don't do that. We do at GasWeatherViz, and of course it's for you to judge what you think about all of the forecasts that we are issuing, both long range and short range. Right, so that closes the door on the summer 2018 forecast, and closes the door on the summer, really. We're into autumn now. Winter updates have started. Winter forecast will be released at the beginning of December. We've already got the autumn forecast sitting on the shelf. We're going to review that at the beginning of December. We never stop at GasWeatherViz. The long-range bandwagon always rolls on to the next season. So That's it. That's the end of summer 2018. Hope you enjoyed this verification. It is a long one. We don't normally talk this long in our verification videos, but of course it has been a very extreme season. I wanted to touch upon how extreme a season it has been, and explain what perhaps went wrong with the summer forecast. Right, so that's all for now. Don't forget to check out today's first video, which is on the homepage. That's looking at the weather for the next week to 10 days and also having a good look at Hurricane Florence. That's all for now, though, and thanks for watching.